A fragile hope. The US and Ukraine meet in Saudi Arabia. On March 11, 2025, the city of Jeddah, Saudi Arabia became the center of attention for the world in Eastern Europe. High-ranking officials from the United States and Ukraine gathered in a tense atmosphere. This meeting marked the first official dialogue between the two countries, after a public disagreement between their leaders had clouded their alliance. The world watched, hoping for a breakthrough. Ukraine was represented by key figures: Andrei Yermak, head of the Office of the President, along with his deputy Pavlo Klimkin. Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba and Defense Minister Oleksiy Reznikov completed the Ukrainian delegation. The American side was led by Secretary of State Marco Rubio. He was joined by National Security Advisor Mike Waltz and Middle East Envoy Steve Witkoff. Interestingly, this was the same American team that had negotiated with Russian representatives in Riyadh a few weeks earlier. The shadow of the recent, very public disagreement between President Trump and President Zelensky loomed over the talks. Although Zelensky was not personally present in Jeddah, his voice was heard through his representatives. He expressed cautious optimism about the talks. Zelensky emphasized Ukraine's unwavering commitment to peace and highlighted the realistic proposals his team brought to the negotiating table. The Ukrainian president called for swift action, understanding that every day of delay brought further suffering to his people. Finding common ground. Ukraine's peace proposal. Ukraine arrived in Jeddah with a concrete plan, a phased approach to de-escalation and peace. This plan represented a significant concession. It acknowledged the need for compromise to pave the way for a more permanent solution. The first phase of Zelensky's proposal focused on immediate steps to reduce violence. A partial ceasefire would be implemented, prohibiting drone strikes and long-range missile attacks. Fighting in the Black Sea would also cease. This initial cooling-off period, Zelensky hoped, would restore trust and create space for dialogue. In addition to the immediate ceasefire, Ukraine declared its readiness for further trust-building measures. Among them was a proposed agreement on mineral resources. This agreement, which had been suspended following the public disagreement between the two presidents, held the potential for economic cooperation and mutual benefit. This was a key olive branch offered by Ukraine. Ukraine's proposal was not without risks. Hardliners in Ukraine could perceive any concession as weakness. However, Zelensky was gambling that a tangible demonstration of a commitment to peace could bring the US back to a position of stronger support. The resumption of US military aid, currently suspended, was crucial for Ukraine to continue its defense. America's concerns, the price of peace and the future of aid. The United States entered the Jeddah talks with its own priorities. While committed to supporting Ukraine, the US government under the Trump administration had adopted a more cautious stance. The recent public spat with Zelensky had heightened concerns within the administration. The American delegation arrived with a clear mandate: to assess Ukraine's willingness to make difficult concessions for peace. There was a growing sense within the Trump administration that a realistic peace would require territorial concessions from Ukraine. This position stemmed from the belief that both sides needed to compromise to end the bloodshed. The U.S. position on resuming military aid to Ukraine was directly tied to the outcome of the Jeddah talks. Secretary Rubio hinted that a positive outcome, with Ukraine demonstrating a commitment to finding common ground, could pave the way for a swift decision on resuming aid. The U.S. wanted to see concrete progress and a genuine commitment from Ukraine to pursue a negotiated settlement. While the U.S. had officially paused large-scale military aid, other forms of support continued. Envoy Witkoff emphasized that the U.S. had not stopped sharing intelligence vital for Ukraine's defensive purposes. President Trump himself stated that intelligence cooperation had almost resumed, suggesting a potential thaw in relations. A long road ahead. Obstacles to a lasting peace. As the U.S. and Ukraine sought common ground in Jeddah, the most crucial voice was noticeably absent: that of Russia. Moscow had previously shown little interest in a temporary ceasefire, viewing it as an opportunity for Ukraine to regroup and rearm. Russia's stated goal remained a lasting peace enshrined in legally binding agreements, not temporary pauses in fighting. However, Russia's vision of a lasting peace differed drastically from that of Ukraine and its allies. Moscow continued to demand significant territorial concessions, essentially seeking to formalize its military gains. Beyond territory, Russia aimed to limit Ukraine's sovereignty, demanding guarantees against NATO or EU membership and advocating for a pro-Russian government in Kyiv. Despite the immense challenges, the Jeddah talks represented a glimmer of hope in an otherwise bleak landscape. The fact that both Ukraine and the United States were willing to engage in dialogue despite recent tensions signaled a shared desire to find a peaceful resolution. However, the path to peace remained fraught with obstacles. Russia's maximalist demands, coupled with the deep mistrust between the parties, cast a long shadow. The coming weeks and months would prove critical in determining whether the fragile hope kindled in Jeddah could blossom into lasting peace.